Hello.
It's so
Hello.
nice to
Hello.
have you back, or have us back, or have you all back.
Yeah, it's nice to be all together again.
There you
Yeah.
go. Shannon, how was your week?
Oh my gosh, so good. So good. I love springtime.
Oh, it's a spring
Promise
in
of
Fairfield too.
so many everywhere is springtime.
It's a
Like
spring in
all the new
Fairfield.
beginnings that come with spring. I love it.
I
Don't you
love
feel that kind
it.
of like new energy?
Yeah, everything is awaking. Everything is there. I always loved spring, so that's maybe why I love Miami so much, because it's kind of like a weather is always springish. When it's the most cold, it feels so spring.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait till summer.
Okay, so um, that was a very intense and nice episode last time we had, and we had so
Yeah.
many comments. And thank you very much for you engaging in, I mean, like audience engaging in this our little chit chat.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, a lot of really good connections made about how dogs come into our lives, why they come into our lives.
And that's
And
that's the. And I'm sorry.
no, and
Go.
just learning about that. Like I thought it was really insightful the things that you shared and the things we got to talk about with your story and with my story of how when our dogs entered our lives, how that transitioned into something. So I feel like it goes into that what we were just talking about like for tonight, exploring the unspoken language of the human dog connection or communication. So like how we find meaning and create bonds beyond our words. So like yeah.
That's very important, because actually, it's not it's not an unspoken language. It's a lost language. It's a language that the human and wolves and human and dogs long time ago was only one using to communicate. It was love and respect, but not love and respect of what I need and what I want, and a selfish love in a way of what's there for me in a relationship. It was a mutual respect and
Yeah.
interaction on the level of mutual respect. And when the
Did you watch
dog,
Game of Thrones?
sorry,
Did you watch Game of Thrones, Sasha?
no, oops,
Oh
you
my
caught me.
goodness.
I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
lose
a
you.
good show.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
the reason I thought of it is because they had wolves.
Hmm.
These wolves came and saved members of their family, and then they kind of adopted three of them.
Hmm.
And if you look and think about the way they treated the wolves and the way they treated them, I kind of see what you're saying. It's different.
Because that's very important to see, like, evolution of the wolf is a very interesting, like, there is no other animal like a dog on a planet, because we have a beginning of the evolution chain. Like, there is a wolf outside still out there, and then you have an ending of the evolution. You have a dog out there, and then that's somehow like, why if that evolution happened from the wolf, evolving into a dog, why do we have a wolf outside? So we have a
Yeah.
beginning and the end of the evolution chain present at the same place at the same time, yet all the experiments of domesticating the wolves failed. So how did the dogs came into our life? And that's very interesting story, but requires entire episode, and then maybe we can talk about that, purposefully some other time. But
Yeah,
what
I
I
would
wanted
love
to,
that. I think that would be interesting.
yeah, it was. The people like to hear about that. It's very inspiring, actually, story. Because I can say that there was a lot of, we were working very closely. My academy was working very closely with a Hungarian University of Etiology that was focusing on
Uh-huh.
dog behavior, right? Like they were evaluating the dogs and how the dog behave. But then oftentimes the conclusion of the experiments were like, or that's observation was like, but we don't know actually how this actually stands, because the people are too much involved in the dogs that behave, because they are observed by the observers, right? So then you have a people observing the dogs, and dog tends immediately to change the behavior. So becomes like, how natural is our observation, how that can fit how the observation of ours in this particular experiment can fit the global species that we can say like, oh, this is how the dogs behave. No, this is how this dog behave under these circumstances.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like when you're saying observing, you mean in that study, you
Yeah.
had the dog, its owner, and an observer?
Yeah, or only the dog that's from a shelter, and now you have only dog and an observer. And they
Okay.
always try to tend and to say, like, I don't know. And every single study was very interestingly said, like, I don't know how objective we are because these dogs behave at this way when observed by these people and owned by those people. And
Yeah.
also, and then where the real behavior dog understanding came to in place is when the studies about observation of the non-captive wolves started to show up in the scientific news. So that was very interesting to see how the pack of the wolves would behave without interference of the humans. And that was a fundamental, those foundings were fundamental of understanding the dog communication, because the behavior is nothing less or nothing more than the dog communication, because the only way the dog communicates with us is through the
Yeah.
behavior. That's
I
the
know. I
language.
loved when you talked about that last week, though. That's really huge for people, for us to tune into. That the behavior is they're trying to tell us something, not acting out,
Yeah.
like per se. Like they're actually trying to let us know in the best way they can, whatever it is they need us
Whatever.
to know.
It's kind of like if I need to tell you something, or if I need to communicate with you, like let's say I'm a dog, and now I want to communicate something with my client, with my owner. I don't have a language. I don't know your
Yeah.
words. I don't know nothing. The only way I can do is I can bark, I can pee, I can chew on something, I can be aggressive, I can protect you, I can eat, I can not eat, I can do a lot of things. But the only aim of me doing that is to tell you something. And the
Okay, so
moment,
that gets misinterpreted so much then, though. And then how do you help us, the dog owners, know how to interpret what those behaviors are?
that's the Pure Love and Harmony entire project. Is fundamental. The project of the Pure Love and Harmony is understanding the canine communication. And I started to put all of these courses and programs in place that will specifically deal with the canine communication. And I just, out of many titles that I, in the relationship with the dogs I hold, the one that I'm very proud of and I kind of like would love me to be remembered at this point of my career would be a canine communication specialist. Like I know how to get into if your dog being under this, and that's very important to understand. When is the dog peeing? When you see him or when you don't see him, when you are in this room or when you are outside? Is that all over the place or on a certain place? And then all of those are the messages. Now, what we need to do is uncode the messages, because if we want to train the dog,
Yeah.
or we want to make a dog not do that, it's like you're preventing child of talking.
Right. Right.
It's not the right way. And then what we have and what we see through all of this training, obedient training, is the only way at this point of our consciousness is to train dogs to behave and become
Yeah, like
obedient.
in people terms, that would be like behavioral therapy. So in psychology, that's more like we're not going to go into why they're doing it or what else underneath that. We're just going to do things to condition behavior.
Yeah, there you go. That would be a right
That's
way to say it. Yes.
okay.
But then becomes like, is that abuse? That's a question for
Right,
me. Is
right,
that abuse?
right.
Right? If I want to tell, if I want you, because if we communicate properly with the dogs, and we do understand how to create environment in which the response of the dogs would be a proper behavior, right? So
Right,
we
right.
create environment in which dog respond, and everything they do we love. because they are so nicely behaved, because the way of their communicating it with us back, it's perfect. And how to create that environment, that requires a lot of knowledge about understanding the fundamentals of the human dog. First,
Yeah.
canine communication. But when we say canine communication, that acts for every single canine family, acts for the coyotes, acts for the wolves, acts for the dogs. There is nothing that would, if you observe the pack of any canine, they would be communicating them among themselves in the same way. What we have a problem with the dogs and dogs with humans is that interspecies connection. Two
Okay.
species came
Oh,
together,
yeah.
and now
Got
we
it.
want to create a pack where actually there is no possibility for pack to be created, because we are not a family. There is no mother and the father with a different generation of the offspring. That's a definition of the pack. So the
Okay.
humans and the dogs cannot create a pack, because we are different species. There is no mother human and the father dog. It's kind
Right.
of
Right.
impossible, right? But that's very important. So it's very important when we look for the solution. The definition of the terms is very important. What do you mean when you say? So because of that, in communication, the language, if you say yeah, it means that you agree to something. If you say no, it's meaning you don't agree with something. So
Right.
when we start to communicate with the dogs on a different levels, like we say this and mean that, how do we do that? By feeling our energetical, how the dogs gets confused next to humans, because we don't know what we want. We don't
We
know.
don't know what we want.
We don't know what we want. First, we don't. Like 99% of the humans, they don't know what they want and what they want to achieve in life. Like, go with these life
Right. Right.
purpose
Yeah.
questions. Like,
Yeah.
and if I'm lost, that every dog know what wants. Once the dog wants to be part of the pack, to know the place in pack. If there is a free leadership position, the dog will take it over. The
Okay. Well,
P,
so though, can I go back a minute though? So we're not a dog pack, but does the dog assume a pack like mentality when he or she joins a family?
yeah, that's the only way
And
they
then
can,
we take
because
the
that's
place of it, but we don't speak the same language. And
because
you were just saying about the leadership too.
the only language the canine can talk is a canine language, not a
Right.
human language, not English, not Serbian, not German, not
Yes, yes, yes. I
nothing,
know. I
right?
know. I know
So
that.
the
I was
dogs,
just clarifying though that because you said in a pack like they have the mom and the dad. So when they
Mhm.
come into the humans, we're not the same species anymore. We're different species.
but that's now what we need to do really is to learn the canine language, so we can
Right. We do
communicate.
because they
Yeah,
can't. We
yeah,
have
yeah.
to
That's
learn
what
their
we need. They
language. Yeah.
can't. That's what I wanted to say. Like, we
That's
can't learn.
yeah.
They cannot learn English, but we can learn uh,
And
canine
it's
language.
actually our responsibility because we bring them into the family just like we bring kids into the family. We need to learn how to, just like we learn. I mean, it sounds so like learning kids. Like, why is your baby crying? Is it hungry? Is it, does it need to be changed? Like all the things you're trying to figure out because they can't yet talk.
Yeah,
It
and
sounds familiar with the dog, like, but no one's been able to fill that gap of like teaching what that behavior means. Like, you're right. It's been more like obedience training.
yeah, I want you to do this.
Yeah, which is
And
kind
what?
of like I'm going to shut down your voice and not care about what you say and just
Yeah,
do what
I
I
don't. Yeah, and that's oppression, and that's the same. And then you
yeah.
never know how the oppressed one will behave, because when we have like when oppression, any oppression is a fear based. So I'm
Yes.
gonna I'm gonna teach you how to sit and how to lay down and how to do this and how to do that. And conditioning can be, and reinforcement of the conditioning can go from both ways. It can be positive or negative reinforcement, but it's still a reinforcement.
Right.
That doesn't
Right.
change the essence of enforcing something on someone. So,
Yeah.
and then that's kind of obviously, and oftentimes what we do is we tend, when we are talking to a little puppies, that we tend to kind of tell them, oh, you are great when you do something. And when they do something wrong, then we punish them, right? Don't do this because when you do this, you're going to get punished. And 99% of the people will go after punishing their puppies when they do something that they disagree with, right?
Yeah.
And that's, again, immediately enforcing the negativity to an action, right? And then now, if the puppy wants to do something, but he's not allowed to do something because it's going to be punished, it creates a coherency of the fear.
Yeah.
And when the
anxiety
puppy,
too, maybe?
Sorry?
Would it create anxiety too?
It does. And then the coping mechanism when the fear is present, it's only three ways. Fly away, freeze, and fight. There is no third way. And then what 99% of the puppies would go and experience, as well as the children, oftentimes, is a freeze. Because they are too small to fight, and they don't have where to go away. They don't have where to run away. So they're going to freeze. And oftentimes, we can have a well-behaved dog that is slowly shutting off.
Yeah. That's sad.
Freezed dog. And you never know for how long that animal can suffer like that. And it will look like they are doing everything we want, but somehow there is no life energy. And you can feel that. And he's well behaved. He does everything what I want. And then it's like a lion in the cage.
Right.
In a circus. You can teach animal to do whatever you want if you blackmail them with a little food or with a threat of the how you call that?
A whip.
A whip, there you go.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of time when within the animal everything gonna explode.
Yeah.
And then
we would say like you break an animal, like if you domesticate them, like you're breaking them.
It's just a
but
matter
part
of
that is you're breaking their spirit too.
Yeah. And just a question of time. And then we come like, as you sow, so shall you reap.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily need to come back from the dog. If I abuse my dog, karma doesn't know it shouldn't come from other dog. Maybe it's going to come back to me from my partner, from someone else. Right. As you sow, so shall you reap. It's so simple. But then we don't look at the same place. Karma usually don't come back from the same direction. That's why it's so hard when it hits. You don't know where it comes from.
Where it came from. Yeah.
And also what I wanted to say, like compared to this, you never had a bigger movement of the canine trainers and obedience way and everything way, and everyone knows everything, right? You have a lot of... Yet, the number one animal that hurts the mankind is a dog. Because that's so sad, because, for example, a lot of dogs are put down because they attack their owners or someone else on the street, a dog or the humans. And they don't do that because they're aggressive and because they want to do that. The number one reason why they are doing that is because they are assigned a leadership position that they took over in order to protect their family. So they did aggression towards humans or towards other animals in order to protect their family. And what is the outcome of that? Putting them down, taking them to a shelter, separating them. But the biggest fault of creating that environment in which dogs choose to be aggressive, it's ours.
And it's the gap of leadership. I mean, you're saying there's a leadership spot open in the family, and so the dog can feel that we're not in leadership, so they feel like they have to step into that.
There you go.
Because that's what you do in a pack.
Yeah, that's what you were doing in the pack. Because there was very interesting still.
That makes sense, though. Like, oh, no one's leading. I got to step up.
Yeah, but that's very interesting. Like, it would never. I must say this. Alpha role in a nature, especially and that's what we teach in the courses. Like every single course has this portion where you do understand very deeply what is the environment of the pack behavior among the pack members, right? So alpha female and alpha male, through the culture interpretation of the mankind are always labeled like aggressive and someone that bullies the others. No, they are the leaders that need to provide environment in which the pack survives.
Right. Yeah.
So there was a very interesting portion of the movie that talks about the Yellowstone wolves, the 3 packs that were leading the Yellowstone. And then I'll take this, very short story would be like that we had this, there was the biggest pack of the Yellowstone. I think they had somewhere around like 20 members of the pack. The father was killed because of no matter what. I think it was killed by the hunters. I don't really know the real story, but he killed somewhere in November. And when you say like around the 20 members of the pack, that's a humongous pack.
That's what I thought. I wondered. I was going to ask you, is that big? It sounds big.
Because they had the biggest Yellowstone territory that was very, that was full of the elks and all kind of food they had. So they were able to survive in that number. So the puppies were very, very, healthy born, and there was a lot of members of the pack to care about them. So a lot of puppies survived during the years, and finally they got this number. But the moment the father died, that was, let's say, November. Until the March, entire pack was disintegrated. You don't take over.
March?
Sorry?
By March?
Yeah, by March of the next year. Like 5 months later, there is none. Members of the pack didn't exist. So usually the leadership position is, always welcomed in if someone can fulfill the role of the alpha. Or they go out and then they try to, build up their own packs. Or take some other that is a missing alpha, because it's not only the strength, it's also the cleverness, the capacity to organize and lead, and strategic knowledge that leader need to have, and a lot of other qualities that animal need to have in order to fulfill that role. And it doesn't happen so often that some of the lower ranking members of the pack gonna fulfill that role. They would try to look for the alpha from outside, and if they can't find it, they would just disappear. And that is how crucial.
They would disappear.
They would die. They couldn't sustain. They couldn't hunt. They couldn't organize the hunting. They couldn't do nothing, because without the head, the body doesn't exist. So it took them just like how many? 5 months to disappear completely.
Wow.
Being taken over by the other pack, pulled away from there, being hungry because they couldn't fight, they couldn't hunt.
Right.
And and that's when you see how that canine communication happens in a pack, then you know what you need to mimic within the family in order to communicate with the dogs properly.
Well, and also to make sure you are being a leader, because if I hear you right, so if we're not communicating or understanding our dog correctly, and they don't feel like we're leading, they're going to feel the pressure to be the leader, and that can create some of these behaviors that look like, bad behavior.
Bad behavior.
But it's actually because we've kind of put pressure on them unbeknownst to us. But if we don't know what we want and we don't know how to lead, they feel that. And so they feel the pressure on them to be the leader. And part of that will be trying to protect us.
And then you never know how they will choose to do that.
Yeah.
And then you can't, why would we blame them? And it's very easy. The dogs and any canine, first what they look for is the most capable of leading the pack. So that's the most important. That's the one next to which the dog can finally be a dog. Mm-hmm. So if they can't find it in a family, because everyone is on the phone, there is no place for anyone, everyone is everywhere, you are not connected to the present, you're thinking about how to pay bill. No one is judging here, and not to take me wrongly, I'm not judging, because that's the pressure of the Western society, that's the pressure of today. When we come to this position to be a leader, we are not able to be a leader of our own life, right? We stay in a
Yeah.
marriages we don't like. We go to a job we don't want to. We stay in the same environment that we don't. We talked about that last time. And then
Yeah.
you can't fake a leadership on your dog if you can't make it in your own life.
Oh
But
my gosh, that's so true. I mean, I took a leadership course. I was in a leadership course last year, and
Mhm.
that was the biggest thing they talked about. That the course is actually more to lead yourself, because you can't lead others if you don't know how to properly lead yourself.
How are you
And
going to
that
do
means
that?
like getting really honest and knowing what you want and what your vision is, so you can take clear steps to do it. And when you do that, you have these attributes as a leader, but it comes from being leading your own life well.
Yeah, and then the dogs are just the outcome of that. But we can, we can do it other way around. We can, because being a leader, first of all, mean being disciplined. And being disciplined oftentimes means doing things you don't want, but you need to do,
Right.
because that comes from your responsibility. It's your responsibility is to do things that will make your company, your family, your pack, your friends, your society, your everything that you put your time and effort in more valuable. If you take a
Right.
position of CEO, then entire company depends on you. And
Mhm.
the people that need to pay their mortgages and their rents and their food and everything, they don't care about how you feel and how you want to go to. You get paid like six figures a year in order to do your job properly.
Right.
And that's very hard to do if that job is not in line with your life purpose. You
Mhm.
can't do it. And
Right.
what I wanted here to say, that maybe, and where the canine communication language, oftentimes you have those leadership classes would say, oh, yeah, I was also listening to one because I said, oh my God, what this has to do? And said like, every single one that took the leadership class needed to learn how to play piano. That was one of the tasks. That was one of the modules. Playing a piano. And he said,
Mm.
"Look, I don't know to play piano. Requires only one, dedication and practice. You don't need to become I don't know
Right.
who,
Beethoven.
famous pianist.
Yeah.
But you need to learn skill you are not comfortable with,
Right.
because that will make you be making a decisions and moving your, create your mindset completely different than it is. So because oftentimes reaching our professional goals will be limited by our you know private abilities to allow ourselves success. That's nothing to do with the job we do. It's inner blockage that
Right.
prevents
Right.
moving on with the business. And just to close this, just to come back to why I wanted this to say, because if we learn canine language and start to behave and create an environment for our dogs to respond, so we get from them willingly positive behavior, as we label it. Oh my God, he's perfectly behaved dog because he's happy and willingly communicate everything that
Right.
pleases me. But I
Right.
am the source of his survival, and he sees me as a leader. And trust me, once you become a leader to your dog, look yourself become a leader through entire spectrum of your life. When we become a great owners to a dog, respectful owners to a dog, respected leader, we become a better
Mhm.
parent, better mothers, better spouses, better co-workers. And this learning something that requires letting our belief about how do we live with the dogs can literally create a better world.
Well, yeah, because it sounds like that require I was getting ready to say, so how do we become a good leader to a dog? But it sounds like it all starts with our own consciousness, our own growth, our own willingness to lead our own lives. And that is actually will translate to being a good leader for your dog. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah, it is. But also, like a spiritual, I think I mentioned that last time, or maybe it was not some of my classes. It was like you can go in a meditation by having, stillness, like we do with the transcendental meditation, like have
Yeah.
that combination of the stillness and dynamism, married in one place. You have this bubbly
Yeah.
mind that through the mantra
Right.
you quiet, but your body still smiles. But you have also
Right.
other techniques like a Shaolin, like a Tai Chi, like a Karate, Kung Fu, and
Right.
all other physical, very dynamic body exercises that again takes you to a peacefulness of your mind. So a lot of approaches we can take to the same goal and outcome. And one of the way to become a better leader is to become a great leader to your dog. Do that first, and then the rest will just come on its own.
Okay. Yeah. But okay. Still, it feels like a big task. If I've just got a dog and you're like, go learn to be like, get conscious, how to lead yourself, that kind of thing. That might be a big, ambiguous thing to take on when you just like have a dog. So what is something that is more like for people who have a dog and they know they're like at least aware enough like, oh wow, I don't really know. Can you teach me? Can like what would you say is the best thing to do then?
Yeah, but first step would be to become aware of that. Get rid of the beliefs that you don't need to train
Yeah.
your dog. You don't need to take your dog to the obedient classes because
Yeah.
all of like that.
That's
And
like
then
more
you
like the order of harmony coming back to that though, right? Like
yeah,
where
order of harmony is I think it's already order of harmony, like it's a family constellation thing that can be a second step, right? I would take a first
okay,
step
I
would
was
be a
maybe
doggy mom academy. I'm
academy.
sorry. The
Yeah.
doggy mom academy, like a first step would be to learn the language of the canine babies. Learn the canine language. Know how to behave in order to create environment for the positive, willing
Yeah.
positive behavior of the
That's kind of what
dogs.
I was asking. It like if because obviously if you want to be
And
conscious, that's a process and it's a lifelong process, right?
no,
Because
no,
we keep learning more. But Doggy Mom Academy or Doggy Dad Academy would help anybody that's just got a dog to learn and know how to read the communication that your dog's trying
yes,
to
perfect.
share with you.
That would be an amazing first step. And then if you can't enforce it
Yeah.
because of the emotional connection, then you
Yes.
go to the next step, and that's order of harmony. Because that's the order of harmony that separates you and the dog
Yeah.
on the emotional level, where you actually get connected on much stronger level. That's actually a level of harmony, respect, and pureness of the love, that I love you as you are, and you are my dog. You shouldn't be anything else. And thank you for coming in my life as a source of something greater that I need to discover through you. But that's the next step. So easier way would be to learn the canine language. And as you go to
Yeah.
learn English, you go to a school to learn canine language, not to train your dog, not to make your dog obedient, because that's what you're,
Right.
again, becoming to the base. Making dog be obedient is nothing different than making a lion perform in circus. It's
Yeah,
the same.
no, it's very different. I mean, like, yeah, because this is we're talking about communication. Like,
Yeah, this
what
is a
is good
language.
communication between humans and dogs? Like, you need to learn how to communicate with your dog.
Yeah. And
Like, it's
sit,
really
come, stay, go, do this, do that, make yourself whatever, and don't do that, don't do this. That's not love. And that's actually, as I said, that's kind of like we talked about that last time too. Every stress, it's a stress triggers the cortisol level,
hmm
triggers adrenaline, triggers all kind of hormones that shuts off the immune system of the dog. So as an
yeah.
outcome of the enforcing
Shuts
the
off the
thing,
immune system. It
yeah,
shuts off the immune system.
it does, because
Oh,
that was step how it goes. Like when we are in a constant stress, our
right.
immune system shuts off. Because why? The cortisol is made, that's the cortisol's purpose, to shut off the immune system so we can do things that we wouldn't do if the immune system would be in a protective mode. So
Right.
now we are now our body is not in a protective mode, and then we can act fast. But the cortisol is just a hormone that should be triggered in and out when
Right.
the when all
Not
of that is
chronic, not
gone,
stay.
right? And then what happens there is slowly by enforcing a lot of things and creating this enforceable environment into a dog's life, we are changing the dog's physiology. And the dog's physiology changes slowly. And there is no bad to hear that like around the 60% of the dogs, I'm sorry,
You need a drink
like a
of her.
60% of the dogs like suffer some sort of the cancer through the life. And all of that is due to the constant stress. And how do we stress our dogs? But not taking a responsibility as we should, because they are stressed in man-made world, because we don't talk their language. And more because it was not like something like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, it was not like that. Because the dogs has a strict purpose. You hunt, you get food. You do this, you get food. You do this. So they had a job to do. They had a job to perform. So dogs were feeling very purposeful. They had a purpose in the life, right? As all of those purposes of the dog disappear through the evolution of the mankind. And now the dogs are still left next to the humans. But to fulfill what? To be the best friend to the humans, because we don't have one, right? We don't have a friends anymore because of no matter what reason. And now we feel alone. No matter how many people we have around us, we feel alone, and then we feel a need to have someone by. So, but fulfilling such a metaphysical task for the very purposeful animal on this planet is it's kind of very difficult. What does it mean being a man's best friend?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So, and there is
it feels like a big job without an exact job description.
There you go. There is no job description. And if we want to really learn from dogs, we need to start small. So what would be the small? Would be learn the dog language, learn the canine language. And we, Academy, we're going to launch that course. Like we run some, go on our webpage and then see, because the course launch going to be on June 7th, right?
Yeah.
June 7th, yeah. And until then, we're going to run, you can enroll the course for a lot of good prices and things like that. But when we start doing it, it's going to be like starts in less than 2 months, right? Yeah. And if you need like immediate assistance, you can always reach us out by email or by phone because this is a podcast as well, I can just tell the phone. So it's 786 for US 786. 702-9093. So shoot SMS or text me if you need anything prior that, like we can schedule if you have any emergency. Because unfortunately, lately, I got 2 messages that people were struggling with aggressivity of the dogs. And unfortunately, I don't know, was I fast enough to respond to those messages, or I don't know. I kind of sometimes step back and think like, could I do something more in order to prevent that from happening? Both dogs were put down.
Oh no. Yeah.
So I find that as a very big, so I don't know how fast I should act in those kind of situation. It's kind of like I was always there to people to approach and ask. I was offering my kind of, I can help.
Yeah, of course.
Give me just a little time to see to absorb this, to absorb the message. So and then I got feedback like we decided to put them down because it's too dangerous for the baby. I do understand that the people would get in that panic that there is nothing to be done, but the dogs are looking for the solution. Right. The dogs don't want that to behave, because in a man-made world, you never know what the dogs can label as dangerous for the family and then attack it. And usually that can be like we kind of set the dogs for the failure, because too early we introduce them to this world that they cannot even grasp. It doesn't exist in their DNA, right? And they don't speak dog language, they speak canine language. And the canine language is across the species, and the dogs are only one little piece puzzle of the big family, a lot of families of the canines.
So like if a dog does, like, I know you said it depends, but just like, I don't know if we could use an example. if a dog does act aggressive and like nips at a child, you
Mhm.
know, what are the aspects that you look at that to see how that dog is what they're trying to say?
First, there is always a bigger picture of why the dog attacked the child, because usually the children are just approaching dogs without any warning, right? And the
Right.
children, because they have their own puppy at home, or they saw the nice, I don't know, puppy somewhere, the neighborhood that has a little pom, or it's a cute dog, and now they are just seeing some other dog in the park, and they just go there on the dog. So there is
Mhm.
also a responsibility of the parents to teach children about how to approach the dogs. If you know that you have an aggressive dog and you have it always on a leash, take responsibility on taking the dog away from the places where you can interact with the kids. But that's the first step. Don't sign up for the failure. Don't put your dog out from the failure if you know you can't control your dog. So,
Right.
but then what's now the healing process is getting back to your home and starting introducing the rituals, the feeding properly,
Rituals. Okay.
interacting with the dog properly. Do everything you do, like feeding the dog, walking the dog, playing with the dog, reunited with the dog, and coming back to the dog, like, or, creating this sense of community with the dog. And when you play those 4 rituals, at least for 2 weeks at home, that's very important to understand. We tend to take our dogs out and then teach them everything outside in a world that's too much distraction on. The only
Okay.
place where we can teach our dogs to behave properly is our home. That can be a backyard, or it can be apartment, or it can be a dog park when no one is there, but primarily the
Just
home, because you don't want to interact with other people and other dogs
the
until your
dogs.
dog doesn't assign you a leadership position. And then the magic happens, because nothing is done without a leadership approval. And if there is not approval, they're going to ask for the approval. And approval, if not granted, what means dog being ignored when asked, they won't do it. And then you see it in immediate action, how actually the aggressivity towards animals or the people disappears, because it's not on dog to decide, are we in danger from this animal, or
Yeah.
from this child, or
Would
from
they
this human.
would they look to you then?
Sorry.
Do they look to you then to see like are we safe?
Yeah, because they are the only way to make them not aggressive is to make them feel safe. And you
Yes.
can't enforce that. You need to earn that.
Right.
Enforcing leader is a bully.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this makes sense.
The
And then I
and
can
that's
see
and if the
other ways.
bullying is, that's actually how children that are enforced with a negative reinforcement become bullied, because that's the only way they learn how to solve the problems, whatever they think the problem is. So they go to school and they bully other children because they're bullied at home. And
Right.
that's the same way, if we teach little puppy to be obedient and bullying way, that's the way how the puppy gonna learn how to solve the conflict issues. So when we
Right.
take a puppy outside to the walk, assigning him a leadership role, because we didn't take it over, and the leadership role is very easy to take over, because it's very easy to communicate it first if you have it right, but it's also very easy to lose it. But that's why you need to be strong in a way, self-controlled in a way, to keep dignity of your actions. And
Right.
that's what we need to inspire. The right leader inspires, and
Yes.
that's how we need to act. That's what we need. Whatever dogs
Yeah.
learn in home, they're gonna take it outside with them in a walk.
So it's different. So you're not. So it's kind of just kind of summary here. It's like you're a leader. You earn the leadership role because you create safety. You create it. You can't force it, make it. whatever. Like, so it's not you're in charge just because you're the dog owner.
Yeah.
It's really, do they feel safe? And when they feel safe that you're in charge and you're going to take care of things, then the burden is off of them.
Yeah. And that's what are the things? The things are the food, who provides the food, when, how, what we eat, that's important. Who is that to provide? That's the responsibility of the leader. So that is why they get confused. We go to the pet shop and we buy the sack of food. So we bring food home, but they are confused how the heck we did it. Right? And because we don't show the leadership skills to kill the animal. How did we do that? So if we already bring that sack of food home, then, and we are not a leader, then it means that they still need to protect us from everything that's around us that might prevent us from bringing home food, so they will not get it. That's what one of the reasons for the aggression is. So who provides the food? Who provides the food? Who protects us from the danger? Because it's not only us who needs the food. You need food too, and everyone else needs food too. And then if everyone needs the food, it means that everyone is fighting for the food. And that's where the confusion because it's not, when we take our dogs in a walk, we are not taking them to the walk. In their environment, toileting doesn't exist as a concept. What does exist is a marking protecting the territory. Marking the territory, protecting the territory, and then, how you say that, marking, protecting, and hunting. So that's why would you go out? But as you go out to do all of those things, all the other dogs of the neighborhood are going out to do the same. And that's the most fragile moment, where everything that you taught your dog can be exposed. If the dog pulls on the leash, means that he doesn't trust you, means that he needs to be a step of you to protect you from anything and everything that might come your way.
Wow.
So it's not about that the dogs pull on a leash because they misbehave. They pull on a leash because they want to protect you.
And like go ahead of you, like they're trying to go ahead. Okay.
Otherwise,
I see a lot of that happening.
Of course. And then what that means that all of those dogs that pull on a leash are the potential danger to every animal and every human. Because if pulls on a leash, you never know when they can decide that something triggers them, and it's a good dog, and I don't know what just happened to him. Yeah, but he's pulling on a leash, meaning is that he's the one to decide what is to be called dangerous and what's not.
So how do you modify that behavior, though, if that's something that's happening with your dog?
Again, you come back home.
Rituals.
And you teach rituals. And you know when you have a problem with the walking, with the leash pulling, then again you come home, you teach rituals, you take a dog out as minimum as possible, just for the toileting, coming back and practicing. You don't set your dog for failure. If you are not ready for the long walks, you don't take long walks. You go short walks, take them out for toilet, come back and practice. What to be practiced? To practice a status, the leadership position, by reuniting, and we can talk about rituals in some other settings. But for example, start picking up the dog bowl. For example, the feeding ritual is very important. Every ritual is a ritual because it has a beginning, culmination, and the end, right? So how the, for example, a feeding ritual looks like. You prepare the food, you put the food down on the floor, you abandon the food, so you move away from the food, you leave the place for your dog to eat. You give him, and the moment he pulls his nose off the bowl, you take a bowl up, and that's it. And you now we can find the 100 people here watching us that say, I never bother picking up the bowl. But that's the problem, because when you leave the bowl down, then the dog thinks, oh my God, it's my responsibility to fill it up.
Wow.
And then when it's his responsibility to fill it up, then he will struggle about entire day. He gonna think about what we gonna eat tomorrow.
Wow.
And then only that little message of picking up the ball can signal that I have your back. Don't worry about this.
Right. And
And
that
what's
takes off the
important?
burden.
What's important? Important. Why the dog? Why you need to? This is a ritual very vaguely explained. But you can start with this. We don't. There is a lot of other things that you can add to a ritual to make it more. How can I say that? More exaggerated. So you kind of exaggerate over the ritual in order to send the signals clearly. It's not that you are alpha and you eat first. It's not about that. But it's creating the relationship in between a leader and everyone else. Because it's the most important one in a home to eat is the leader. Because entire survival of the pack depends on
Based on the
him.
leader. Yeah.
We had a lot of culture, back in the times. We had a lot of cultures, including our in Serbia. There was the oldest man in the family ate first, and the children got whatever is rest.
Yeah.
You have also the queen and kings ate first, and the peasants or the others were eating after.
Right.
That's always the structure of the whose responsibilities are most in place, not because of ego tripping and this and that. No, natural way of who can bring the most survival to this community.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just think like the rituals, like we don't get taught that. We don't have this insight on how to help them not feel that way and not get overburdened. And I know more people would want to know that. 'Cause, I mean, I'm thinking about some of the other ones that we talked about that we had on here. Other ways of behavior communicating: separation anxiety, aggression, excessive barking, destructive chewing. These are all things people get in trouble for.
Let's say separation anxiety. Let's say that one, the most common one. You have around 70 different dog symptoms, dog behavior symptoms are connected to a separation anxiety. But let's say for the most one that's disturbing, that's excessive chewing when we are not together, or peeing and pooing all over the place. So the dog would, how you say that, excessive elimination. There you go. But then that's happening only when we are not together, or barking. So let's focus on these two: chewing too much, everything. The dog chew everything
when we're not there.
We are not together. So when the dogs are scared for their leaders. Actually, when the dogs are not leaders, the only way to protect the members of the pack is to be around. So I don't know what can happen to you if I'm not next to you. And then let's go with the most extreme one. The dog is peeing and pooing, eliminating intensively when we are not together. What they are sending us is a message back to the cave. So they think in their little mind that we got lost and we will never know how to get home. But if they're gonna pee and poo all over the place, they're gonna leave enough smell for us to navigate through the danger place and come home.
Like find your way through the forest.
Yeah, find a way through the forest home. And then we come home and we got angry at them. And at that moment when we open the door, they get relaxed. And you think they're going to stop peeing and pooing? No. They're going to keep doing it because it works. It brings you home.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
You can't beat them enough. You can't punish them enough because that excessive elimination served its purpose. You came home. And on the other side, let's say someone else is dealing with a higher little, making decision that you should maybe trying peeing and pooing around the home takes a really big, puzzle to solve. A lot of dogs are not at that level. So I think like peeing and pooing are one of the most intelligent dogs would start doing that, because that takes mind to put it together and come up with a solution. The other ones will cope. They don't know, and those guys don't cope it. They have a stress level high, but they are keeping it until you do not home. And then you can do them whatever you want. You can punish them. You can beat the hell out of them. They fulfill the purpose. They won't stop doing it. So what happened to let's say another thing. The dog is chewing everything when you are not together. Those dogs release hormone, for example, stress level hormone when you are not together, start growing high. Why? Because they're afraid of what's going to happen to you, because the human babies are away. It would be like you have for example, you are the mom and your father, whatever, and now you told to your boys or your girls, your teenagers, that they can, come home until 10. You have out till 10. So how do you behave, and what's going through your mind in between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. when they finally show up on the doorstep?
Yeah, you're worried.
Or even worse, can you imagine like you have like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old just learned how to walk around, and now you're a mom that got busy somewhere doing in a corner, and you turn around, the baby is not around. How would you feel?
Horrified.
That's exactly what the dogs are going through.
Wow.
So that stress of the adrenaline, when it kicks in, the dogs experience high level of anxiety. That's already the hormonal state of the body that they can cope with. Now the body is kind of like crashed. It's like for example, it's the same like for example, the epileptic attack. The attack itself is a culmination of the biochemical process that happens and takes maybe 2 hours. And it's, this kicks that, and then hormone starts. There is a trigger, and then slowly starts, the hormone starts to slowly, release itself. And the culmination of that is we can't stand it anymore. And then, epileptic attack kicks in. Right. So that slowly happens with the dog too. But it's not an epileptic attack, it's an anxiety attack. And then the only way to release the hormones that will start slowing down that panic would be to chew. And by chewing, the dogs are actually releasing an endorphin that will actually calm down them in the best possible way until the babies don't return home.
Got it.
And you come home and you punish them again, no matter how hard you try, and you put them in a crate, and then they destroy the crate. Why? Because that's the only way to cope with the anxiety.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the way out? Just claim your leadership position.
Just claim your leadership position. Through the rituals.
Through the rituals. Start talking a communication language.
I know. I mean, seriously, this is why I said I wish I would have known this before I got Izzy.
Let's try maybe we can do this. Like, I'll just maybe put a little pressure on Vedran until we talk here. Like, Vedran, can you find those 3 pictures that you can you do that now? Is that too much for me to ask? If you can just put the picture, I think you know what I'm talking about, how the dogs communicate among each other, how the dogs and humans communicate among each other, and how the wolves communicate in each other. I think you should have that in the presentation of that anxiety. If you can do that, just write me a message. If you can't, write me again. So maybe we just, go over that, because I think it was very important to people to understand that the dog doesn't use a different language to communicate to us, rather than they would use in order to communicate among themselves. And that communication and that rituals that they communicate among themselves is the same that the wolves communicate among themselves. Okay, perfect. So we can't have those pictures, but maybe we can post those pictures in a comments, or those pictures can follow this podcast on the
So
other
this
platforms
almost
as
feels
well.
like a something like, I mean, like a handbook course that you need to get when you get a dog. So
Yeah,
you really know what, because I mean, again, I said this last time, like you think, I mean, I hope most majority of dog owners are well intended and really
yeah,
trying to love their dog and do the right thing. But just because you don't know, you are setting things in motion that are creating stress and anxiety and all these things on your dog, which is going to affect their health and their behavior.
yeah. Down the road, it's that's very interesting to understand. You understand when he talks about we know that Maharishi was always talking about a transcendental meditation, but he was also talking about how important it is to keep physiology clean, to think about what you think, to think about what you eat, to think
Yeah.
about which kind of surrounding you live, which kind of environment you live in order everything has an impact on physiology, and your
Yeah.
physiology can impact the level of your transcendence.
Yeah.
So the physiologies that are not clean as much as possible, and we have that power to choose what we're going to put in our body, and that's the way around. Like behavior of one impacts the physiology as well, the food we put in. So the
Yeah.
level of the stress impacts physiology because creates an environment for the hormonal disbalance that will affect a long thing.
Yeah.
This one is important and enough. The
Yeah.
anxiety raises the cortisol level, and when the cortisol level is high, then the immune system is shut off.
Yeah. But like, and we know this about our human health, right? Like that stress is not good. I don't think they usually break it down that often to say like why stress isn't good and why stress leads to other disorders or illness and stuff. But let's just say we know this, like for humans, we don't think of it the same in our dogs. And then even though even if we might become aware of it, we don't know how to prevent it.
Yeah, because you can again look at this one. You can have that was very interesting. I'll share one interesting story. There is a way to find through different tests. One of which we're gonna highly recommend and already working very hardly to get it out there. And I might be able to put this stress test out there together with the academy. Is that when you do testing the coat of your dog, right way, in order to get you need
Right.
to approach you need to get that to state of the art facilities in order to get to
Yeah.
that matrix of 3 months or that lifelong hair circle will mimic what was going on in the dog's body, and there is a certain metrics which can show us the relationship in between the calcium, for example,
Okay.
and potassium or other magnesium or other kind of elements within the dog's body. When those elements become already part of the tissue, that
Mhm.
means that in that range, and they already create the body, the shape of the body, and they create a tissue of the body, then it means that they are not just traceable. They're already become a building block that the blocks are not getting together in the right way, in the right ratio.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
some of those like ratios can show that, for example, the gland that's very important for the stress level and actually usually always suffers is a thyroid gland and the thyroid problem, right? And oftentimes, due to stress, the thyroid gland become less and less and less and less active. And you need activity of that gland in order to drive the entire immune system of the body.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not an easy to impact that gland only based on the nutrients that you take through your food. So what
Okay.
happens here is that stress environment that we let our dogs live in impact their physiology in really metricable, how measurable way, that you see that because of your dog is high stressed, and the high stress is because you didn't take your leadership position,
Right.
you're gonna impact the level of the calcium, magnesium, potassium, and you're gonna stop his thyroid gland
Oh.
from working. And
Yeah, I
even
mean, you can see the domino effect. I mean,
yeah,
and then we talk about our own health being mind, body, spirit. I mean, dogs have different
the
ways
same.
that they have breakdown too. Yeah.
And again, like I think like this would be the highly recommended test for every single one to do,
The
because
coat
again I
testing.
say, yeah, but
Yeah.
especially this, because we created this in we're gonna expand over and over, and maybe we can talk about that next time a little more about importance of the code testing and do it in
Yeah.
a regular basis, because I wanted to show how the dog behavior and the human dog interaction leads
Yeah.
to a physiology collapse.
Does. We talked about this last episode. My dog Izzy, when introduced to a new dog in the family, and how she got aggressive, towards him, and now understanding that she was trying to protect me. So I wasn't being um, the best leader for her. And again, with all my good intentions of trying to love her dearly, I didn't know the things we talked about and how to set that up. And I didn't know how to read the behavior. I didn't know what to do about it because, again, traditional dog like obedience and care would just be like, they said, oh, it just takes time to adjust, or you do things to take away. It's like take away the food and do this, and like conditioning. And it never went away. And I'm sure that put a lot of undue stress on her, which,
Later
contributed to
on,
her health. Yeah. But it's just really, yeah, it's just really fascinating. I mean, because again, we know this about humans, right? These things, you stay in toxic relationships, it's going to affect your stress hormones, like, anxiety, like all these things, which is going to break down your immune system and what's to make you more susceptible to disease and disorder in your body.
but yeah, because you see, again, like we come to the point last time we was talking about very from the point of metaphysical and order of harmony thing and everything, but you
Yeah.
can put it down to a language and communication. Because on
Yeah, it's
one step,
beautiful.
if you would be strong leader to your own life, you would know when to leave the relationship. You
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
won't even come to a point of big, and then she would take you responsibly. She said, "Oh my God, like she's the one I need to be protected by, and I will be protected by because look at her. No matter how much courage it requires, she's taking the right step at the right time."
Yeah. Well, and I didn't take it at the right time. I stayed a little long, but
I get
the
that, but that's
the
why she
dynamic
took it
didn't
over, right?
yeah, but the dynamic did change when I did leave.
Didn't
Like
change.
she was calm, and I felt like she didn't have to take that role on anymore, because I was in charge of
Yeah, but
me.
you are kind of like a C-level, like a corporate level high-end CEO lady. So you have all the qualities of the good leader. The just question becomes like when we got kicked out from that position because we want to compromise on something, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
lack those skills, right? You don't lack skills of leadership. You
I
just was
know.
in a relationship or in an environment when you choose to compromise for no matter what reasons. And
Right.
she was
Yeah.
there to remind you that there is no time for compromise, or
Yeah.
at least not now, right?
Not
Not
now.
now,
Yeah.
not now.
But I know, and I guess that's why, like, I want to say this to like everybody watching, everybody listening. You know, I mean, you can be super high functioning, super smart in all kinds of leadership roles or whatever, but there is something specific to learn this about your communication with your dog. They're just like those, even like taking up the bowl, Sasha, like that, what it represents, all these things, what they represent, and what the dogs assigns meaning to when we
Yeah,
do or don't do things, just like children. This all reminds me of children because when we're kids, when our parents do something like, or discipline us or something, our brains aren't developed enough to know exactly what they intended or that they had a bad day or where we think it's us. We did something wrong, or we internalize it. We assign meaning to it that might not necessarily be true, but then you're burdened with that belief or that idea that like I did something wrong, I'm not good enough, my mom doesn't love me, or something's not right, right? Like
Hmm.
something's off. And so you take that away, right, and go back into the dog. I mean, it seems like it's a similar type of thing, even though they're not human, but comparing it to a child where the dog assigns a meaning to things. And if we don't know what we're maybe accidentally communicating, I can see how when we're putting like so much stress and things on our dogs that are affecting their well-being and their health. I mean, if we want
And
them to be with us a long time, the more we can know how to properly lead them and what their behaviors are trying to tell us, we have a way better relationship with them.
yeah, and then that will open the doors for the much happier and healthier interaction. And then
Yeah.
we teach in that we learn in that relationship. We can learn the magic law of cosmos in the giving and receiving, and giving and
Yeah.
taking the right thing, right?
Yeah.
As we talked, like in every single relationship, there is something that's mine and only mine. That's something that's yours and only yours, and that's
Mhm.
something that's ours. And when we
Yeah.
split, I take mine and ours, and you take your and ours. And that we how we actually grow together, because we grew by going out healthy way through the relationship, and we both take out ours, and then how we
Mhm.
grow, right? And why
Yeah.
this, you nailed it, perfectly when you said in relationship to a children, and misinterpreting and miscommunicating it out from the pure love of the parenthood,
Yeah.
right? And end up, pureness of the intention turns into a pure hell, right?
Right.
And then,
Exactly.
and why is that the same to the dog? Because it's the same structure, same mental structure, same dynamic of the family. It's a pack.
Yeah.
And as a pack animal, humans can respond to a roles needed for dogs' survival, and that's a pack structure of the leadership. What the
Yeah.
dogs need from us.
And Sasha, so if you've had your dog for a few years and you haven't been doing these rituals and stuff, is that something that's can be course corrected when if you were to do like if
In
I'm
two
going to
weeks.
do 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks. That how
Wow.
much they are actually praying for that moment to happen,
Oh
because
my
they want nothing
gosh.
more of us than to awaken ourselves and start
Yeah.
communicating language that we promised we will talk,
Right.
because they can't
That's
they
so great
can't
though, because a lot of times shelters will say like a dog's a lost cause or there's no hope, and that's not
No,
true.
that's
But
not true.
also like encouraging to know it can change as fast as 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be like this
No,
huge
it
laborious long thing.
no, it just require a consciousness of the entire family. That's important. That the
Yeah,
entire family need to be
on
understanding the
board.
canine language, yeah, and then all of them just to start communicating. And all the communication through in the first 2 weeks is exaggerated, right? And that's why we teach it. With the teaching course starts those 2 weeks, and all of those rituals are exaggerated, so the dog clearly gets a message, right?
Yeah.
And then every
Yeah.
single time when we slip out from the things and dog starting doing something we don't like, we turn back to a four rituals, to exaggeration, and to clearly communicating messages. But once you learn the language and you forget it a little bit, it will be easy to come back and learn it and communicate it
Right.
again. And you're going
Well,
to
and
be
also
higher.
also then you get aware though of the behavior. So then if now that you're conscious, if you get off track a little bit and the dog does something that kind of reminds you, you're like, "Oh, okay, I need to go tighten this
Yeah.
up again." Yeah.
Let's say again, like there is a playing ritual. So there are the rules in how the dog and owner should play. If you,
Ah.
for example, there is a great tip also for you, for anyone there listening this. If you have a problem with your dog and you don't have a time for the academy at this point, or you whatever, you are busy, or you don't know how to call 786-702-9093 in order to get help, right? You can start playing with the dog right way. Never.
What's the right way?
What's the right way is never take a lead of the dog in playing. The dogs would usually start playing with us, like bringing toys to us.
Yeah.
And then we would take a toy and start playing with the dogs, and that's immediately ruining the relationship. That's the problem, where the dogs and dogs want to challenge. It's not a playtime as would they have a playtime. It's a leisure time, but also time for establishing the rules and the leadership position.
So what do you do if your dog brings you the ball?
You ignore the ball. You ignore the dog, and then the dog maybe start barking. You ignore that. You just look other way. You do what you do. Wait for the dog to calm down. That means, like, if you ignore the dog very fast, they're gonna just go in the corner, lay down, pick up the ball, and call the dog and go play 3 hours if you want. That's very important. You can do everything you are doing. You can cuddle with your dog. You can have them on your sofa. You can play with them as much as you want. You can take him to a long walks. You can let him off leash or off leash, but everything has its rules. And the rules are that everything happens on the call of the leader. So what's the problem in leaving the dog? But you know what oftentimes happens, like, but I like when he looks at me and brings the ball and look me so sweet and innocent and things like that. But that's a trap. That's a trap.
Right.
That's what the people. That's what the dogs. That's what the dogs would do. That's what the wolf would do inside a little pack when they challenge each other while they are in a litter. They would start. They would start doing each other, like a kind of getting into each other. The ones that are initiating the play are usually the ones that are needing more attention, and they are the lower ranking packs trying to ladder up in the position to the someone else. So the moment someone responds to the play means that one invited is a winner. So when the dogs brings the toys to us, respectfully do whatever you are doing. Read the phone, read the newspaper, do your work, whatever, and be aware a little bit. Like you do that, when you can, if you are conscious, you can look at in this like a screen, but I can see entire room.
Your
like
peripheral view, yeah.
Use the peripheral and don't look at the dog, telling him not now, don't do that. Things like ignore.
And then he comes down, and then then you're the one that initiates the play, so he knows you're in charge.
Yep. And look at if the dogs are not well behaved and they are not communicated properly, usually they won't fall for that and they won't respond. You'll drop the ball and they're going to look in the ball and say, okay, you play with yourself. That's a signal that actually dogs are in charge and they expect you to play when they want, because you are not the leader. And then often, so how to solve this problem is actually, again, start slow, start rituals. The most important, valuable one is a feeding ritual. And I just explained but also you can lose the feeding rituals, for example, by giving a treats without reason and giving a chews without a reason. So the treats should be a reward for something that the dog does well, right? But they are not a source of okay, let's give you a treat just to give you a treat. So it's a time for snack, right? If I give my dog reward without him doing anything for me, what can be anything? Can be come here, come Henny or whatever, and I give you a treat because you came. That's a recall exercising that can be connected sometime with a treat, sometime with only a good boy, or a kind of like, how you say, like good boy. So you don't always do the food as a blackmail thing or whatever. But it's important that reward is earned for something that we are doing
that
good.
They did.
And whatever that's not something that I want to enforce in your dog. It's just little more extra of I love you, to communicate with a little treat it's not a treat, should be called reward. So when you name something treat, It can be, let's treat ourselves, so let's go to glass of wine, 5 o'clock tea, or things like that. But
Right.
if you say reward, that means that something should be done in order to be earned, right?
Right.
And
Right.
dogs like that. And there is a
Because
chewing.
that gives them purpose, right? That kind of goes back to them
Yeah,
fulfilling their purpose.
there you go, because that's what the dogs are made for. It's
Mm.
to do something for mankind. And in
Right.
return, they will earn the food, shelter, and social interaction, protection, and everything that comes with that.
Got
And
it.
for example, we have a chew, like that's a bone, big bone, that can be eaten for a while. That's
Yeah.
one time you call the dog, give him something to do for it. You reward him with that, and then you leave it to the dog. There is not something. The moment you take that away, it's either going in the trash, or in order to give it back to the dog, you need to tell him again to do something for it. But if
To
you
do
you
something
can,
for it.
yeah, but you can leave it also. It can be, but you can see the dog might choose something like for a couple of days, and then they're gonna leave it there because they are looking for the meaning in everything they do.
Ah, okay.
Does it make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It
But
really makes sense.
all of these things that I said, not picking the bowl, giving the treat just because to give the treat, give the chewing things because the dogs are looking at you and you want to work, playing with them when they want you because it's so sweet and you can't resist looking their
Yeah.
eyes. It's losing a leadership position because it's in their language, clearly communicating, I respect you as my leader.
Yeah. Well, and it also kind of what's coming to mind though, it's a little bit of a lack of consciousness or presence. Like if we leave the bowl down and you leave the chew out and you just give the treat for whatever, like it's kind of not being really connected or very present either.
It's that's I kind of you just named the number one reason why all the religious and the movements and the inspirations and meditations exist in order to keep us in the present moment
To keep
that
us
we
in
so
present.
easily like kind of like
Yeah.
slip out
Lose
from. And
it.
that's ones that can be present and it's have a human mind and consciousness is an enlightened. But that's what the dogs are teaching us.
Right.
We talk that because the dogs are always in a present,
Yeah.
and we
And they,
are
and so
in
then
a.
they can really tell when we're not.
Yeah, they can, and then
Yeah.
we can see that through them. And
Yeah.
that's aside from the very silent dynamism that can be taught from the being a good dog leader, like communicating properly the canine language, is to be present. Because otherwise, the messages you're going to send to your dog, and then outcome can be confusing for him. And the confused dog is taking over the leadership position. And outcome of that are all kind of bites and the euthanasians and abandon the
Oh,
dogs and put them in shelters, and then they get
and
the
it's
outcome of that.
unnecessary.
That
It's unnecessary.
it's
It's
completely
unnecessary
unnecessary.
because there are things that that dog just needed,
You know
and
that we
then they,
when we made that presentation, you know that we were going after those numbers, and it says
yeah,
like 4 million dog bites a year happen in the U.S. alone.
4 million.
Was it a 4 million or 1.4? Yeah, it was like 4. Look at the.
Oh,
You
look,
have
I
paper
have it.
next to you.
Yeah, I remember it was really high, and I was shocked.
Is it 4 million?
Um,
It's on like for a second
4.5 million injuries annually.
annually in the U.S. only, out
Dog
of
bites
which
result in 4.5 million injuries annually.
800,000 need a hospitalization, right?
Yep.
Out of
800,000
which
seeking medical attention. And 30 to 50 people are killed by dogs each year, with many being young children.
there you go, and all of that
Wow.
because all of this if all of these obedience trainings and everything would work, why the statistic would go in that direction? And it's not getting better.
It's
It's
getting
getting
worse.
worse. Yeah, it's getting worse.
Why is it getting worse? Because we're less conscious?
Because we become very kind of like being leader is always, especially in this environment now,
Yeah.
always assigned to a very no one want to be a bully. And now if you tell that you misinterpret this what I say, and someone tells you, oh, he's telling you to be alpha to your dog, that immediately calls for the definition of alpha as something that's
Yeah.
aggressive and bullying. And I don't want to be bullied, and I want to bully anyone. And okay. The number one reason why this is happening is because of the humanization of the dog.
There we go.
That's the point.
Yeah. I was gonna say because
That's the
then
actually right
and
answer to your
it's like the
question.
opposite of being bullied is like we overdo it, we over coddle, we overdo everything, and
That
then we're not, and
unfortunately,
we're like the furthest from being a leader, even though we think we're giving them all this love and attention.
that's in their mind, in their mindset, that's bullying too.
Ah,
That's kind of like overprotective parenthood creates completely unuseful individuals.
yes,
You
yes,
have a son of 30 years living with the parents, and mother is cooking still for him. Like
right,
which kind of man that boy can become.
right. Like
There again, like nothing of this is to blame anyone, because I
no, but
know the
because it's
mothers
not
are doing this because there is no father figure, and they try to protect and they try their best. And
well,
outcome of that best is a hell for the life of the
right.
children.
You know, Gabriel, or I think it's Gabriel Mate.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
who talks about trauma. He was like talking about this in some, different capacity, but kind of going back to the bully and the overdoing it. It's like, a lot of like again that he was talking about tough love. That's what made me think of it. He said there's no such thing as tough love. Um, you. I'm not going to say it as well as he did, but basically you need to communicate. Like you need to know how to properly communicate, because to just say like no and call it tough love is not that. It's shutting down, it's oppressing, it's hurting kids because they don't understand the meaning. And then the flip side of that, like when you're talking about the mom who helicopter mom who overdoes it over everything, even to their children into adulthood, is really inhibiting their child from becoming a fulfilled contributing adult in the world. But her intentions are good. She's just not aware of what it's actually doing to her child.
and
And that's where
again,
we
like
all have to wake up and take responsibility and say, we might mean well, but we're actually doing a disservice to our dogs.
yeah, and the best way to do that is to assign to this test and see the test, see it for your own eyes, that you are not doing good to your child, that you are not doing good to your
Yeah.
dog. Because if you see that that the dog, for example, has I know there was a test was done to a dog in December, and it showed exactly that, like over activity of the dog, like constant anxiety, the complete shut off of the thyroid gland. So that was December 24th.
Mm-hmm.
On the January 8th, the dog was hit by the car, almost died, because he was attacking the car, wanting to protect
Thinking,
protecting the owner from the car. And it's all you could already see it's coming, because the test already showed that the level of the anxiety the dog experienced is on so high level that just the question becomes like, what's going to be a trigger for him to make a hurt to his being. And then
right.
oftentimes it's just not enough to the people to put two and two together, because he was looking like everything, just not unhappy
Yeah.
and not stressed dog, because he have
Yeah.
all the attributes of the happy dog that every
Right.
single person on the planet would see the happy dog, rather than one knowing to communicate canine language. Then you
Right.
would see anxiety, then you would see depression, then you would see overreactiveness in constant moving and peacefully sleeping only when around the owners. That's clearly showing that the dog suffers high level of stress, and he tries every single moment to get a rest. And even when you get rest, those dogs are not resting at all because they are high alert. So every single motion keeps them away. So it's kind
Right.
of like, and oftentimes these tests can show us, and this was a perfect example of how the people can misinterpret mainstreamly accepted way of happy dog. Where actually when you put
Right.
that dog and you take him in a lab and you see how and what's going on, then you see what's happening outcome. And I think that
And
the
that's
dog has.
the lab test, right?
Yeah.
The
That's the
haircut,
lab
like,
test that we're going to very soon introduce. And then we're going to start, seeing the solution for that would be calming the dog. But the only way to calm the dog would be to assign him some calming pills or whatever, but that's not an option, of course, is to create. That's the humans need to create an environment in which the dog response will be a positive, calm, sophisticated, and peaceful behavior out from
yeah.
full trust and willingness to cooperate and express the positive behavior as an outcome of reflection of the
Right.
owner's surrounding and owner's environment that they create for the dog to react on.
Man, I mean, I would love that. Sounds like a very must have thing to do tool wise to really get insight on your dog. Like, how can
Yeah.
you, I mean, like, what
Sorry.
food supports them? What behavior modifications are needed that would support them?
Yeah, for now we can start. We can start all of that can be looked out from the code testing, because the reaction to that actually the advice that we can give from that requires a lot of R&D still that we don't
Right,
have in place
right,
at this
right.
point. But
Yeah, but
the
if you go
canine
back to what
communication.
we're,
But I'm
as
sorry, the
those,
canine communication is a pretty much powerful tool to lower the anxiety.
it's a
And once you
must.
lower the anxiety, you lower the adrenaline and cortisol level
Yeah.
within the body. That changes complete biochemistry within the body, that changes physiology, and happens the outcome of the dog's behavior becomes much
Yeah.
peaceful.
It's
And you,
everything. I mean, it really sounds like it's everything. It helps their anxiety, helps their aggression, which also, like you said, a lot of dogs get put down because they were aggressive or they bit someone. So that's like saving your dog. Um, it like teaches you how to interpret things that they're doing, so you know better how your dog is communicating, and then you know better how to meet their needs. I mean, and like the chasing. I remember when you had said something about a dog chasing a car is like them trying to protect you. Like, so all of the things with the behavior just sounds like the foundational. Like, it's like
yeah,
an absolute foundation to your dog's safety, health, and well-being.
yeah, that's
And longevity. If you want your dog around a long time, the best thing you can do is understand this as a foundation that you can put, and then you can keep adding on to that with other things. But that's like a must have, because we
yeah,
need
kind
that
of
for
we look
everything.
about like how our dog's gonna look like, how they're gonna be groomed, what they're gonna wear, which kind of color
Mhm.
lead we wanna buy, and then we miss the most important thing. We miss to learn the language to communicate with them properly.
Yeah.
They won't learn English, never in their life, and that's also the people are arguing like, are the dogs responding to our words? And you often have like people say, oh, I don't, if I would just talk Swedish, my dog would perfectly talk Swedish. And you have all of these dogs that are imported from China, that are coming from Chinese slaughterhouses, right? They're coming straight to English families, responding perfectly to a new environment without knowing a word of English, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's not a language that we communicate with our dogs. What we communicate with our dogs is intention.
Yeah.
And intention transcends the words. Intention of me talking sit to my dog is expression of me saying sit on English or sedi on Serbian or whatever other language we might use, is expressing my intention for my dog to sit down.
Right.
What they respond on, it's intention. And
Yeah.
then which language you're going to use to express your intention doesn't make any difference to them.
Yeah. Well, Sasha, and like Doggy Mom Academy, So you go through different modules to teach people these different rituals.
Yeah. So first we dive into understanding the wolf language, the lost language, what we kind of hijacked and abused to fit our emotional agenda. Right. So we decompose actually, and we put out the language, and we observe through the very nicely pictured video. We observe the life of the wolves, wolf puppies, interaction
Yeah.
of them, and all of those videos are, highly done in without interference of the people. So they're like all those videos that were shot in Yellowstone, and we happily had a great connection and access to those videos through our partners
Yeah.
in this program, right? And then
Hmm.
everything that then we go through that learning. People learn first. The doggy mom and doggy dad learn the canine language, and the canine language we can't learn from dogs because we are too attached to the dogs. And we always,
Yeah.
if you want to learn from dogs, then you are missing the point, because dogs are already conditioned by the humans, so you don't feel the essence. And the essence is in jackals. How you say jackals?
Jackals? What are you saying again?
There you have a wolves, then you have a jackals. The little wolf. It looks like a wolf. Jackal.
I would say fox.
It's not a fox. You have them in Fairfield. What do you have there?
Oh, coyotes?
Coyotes. I'm sorry. All of those things are having the same type of the pack mentality and pack behavior. They
Yeah.
all speak the same language,
Yeah.
right? And
I know
then
someone told me if I ran into one coyote, I shouldn't be worried, but if I run into two or more, then be worried.
they must be around too. But
Yeah.
also the other thing would be like, we learn from there, and we start from learning the ancient language, the real language, the pure language, right? And then
Right.
slowly we translate that to a puppyhood, to a dogs, and slowly see that the behavior of the dog is no different than the behavior
Yeah.
in between the dogs, and then in between the wolves. And then we learn how to step in a role and the role of the dog by knowing and communicating the dog language. And we finish with the rituals, and it's like a simply in 4 lessons that are explaining about the rituals and enforce, like how do we care about rituals. And then also
Yeah.
there is a chapter about this is also divided into people that have a puppies, that has
Yeah.
or thinking to have a puppy, so they get prepared for the puppyhood properly. Then the people that are already experiencing some problems with the puppy, right, or
Yeah.
with the older dog. And also the shelter dogs, like if you plan to adopt the shelter dog, it's always best to learn canine language, because before you go to a date with a canine, before you date a
Yeah.
canine, learn the
Yeah.
canine language,
Learn
right?
the language,
Yes.
ideally. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
then I
that
think
sounds real.
like I think a big portion of our work now is to spread this message as much as possible to the all kind of people that are caring about the dogs, raising them from the puppyhood, like
Yeah.
a breeders, or approaching the shelters worldwide, to get out this message
Yeah.
and have
It's a
as much
must.
as most possible, as much as more possible people in tuned in this canine communication, so we
Yeah.
create a better world as an outcome of that.
Yeah, I mean, I said it when we talked about it, different subject matter last show. Like, I just think this is like essential. Like it's like run, don't walk to do the academy. If you really care about your dog and you really, want them to be in your life a long time and you want them to have a good well being, this is essential. And it sounds really doable. Like if you have 4 main modules and then you've built in all these extra things. And I think you said you have Q&A calls too, so you can ask
Yeah.
questions.
So what
Yeah.
we have, what we have is like this first. This it's also kind of like opening out the new profession, because we want to all of you who would finish this course, finish the Doggy Mom Academy, to become a canine communication specialist, because we need more
Yay, how
people to
fun.
train this. You
Yes,
know.
and more people to teach other people about it. I gotta say, because
Yeah.
every time I have mentioned this to people, to friends I have with dogs, they're very interested because most people do want to do what's right and best for their dog. They just don't know how. They didn't even know there was a way. So it's a really beautiful thing to let people know about because I think most people actually want to do this and want to do the best thing for their dog. They just don't know that this is there.
It was like so nice to see because all of these came as a conclusion of my 30 years working with the show dogs, right? So I was
Yeah.
paid to do what's right. And I was having always relationship with my dogs that were always willingly performing for me on the shows that other dogs did because they were trained to do so. And you
Mhm.
have that little extra, that the little bit of something that separates the Miss Universe from kind of second
Runner
and
up.
runner-ups is that spice, that glitter, that something that's there rather than just what you want to create in a world peace. Like something,
Right.
that little
Right.
bit of
Right.
something. And that's something that makes such tremendous difference that it looks like there is a 5 places in between the
Right.
Miss
Yep.
Universe and the first runner-up. And then that was like with my show dogs. I always had one dog that I care about, and all my world was connected to that dog. But I didn't know why I'm doing that. Like why I did it because it seemed natural to me to ignore the dog, to be a leader, to not ignore him, like ignore him. No, ignore him when time comes. And then feeding ritual was on spot. I was like amazed with when I learned about these things properly. Then I said like that's what I did, but it was very natural doing, right? And then
Mhm.
when I started my academy, when I retired from the show ring, then I started teaching other people how to do that. But then I was able to teach them how to do something without knowing to explain them why that works, right? I was missing a why. And when you can't
Got it.
explain why, then the people can get an access to how and what to do. It just doesn't stick. The
It doesn't
knowledge
stick.
doesn't stick, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
then I was, right?
Yeah.
So
The
then
why
I,
is
then
really
I, then I,
important.
sorry?
The why is really important.
Yeah. In that context, why for this type of the sometimes why is too much. For example, in spiritual work, you don't
Yeah.
ask why. You observe the
Right.
consequences of the actions, and then you try to mimic and do things like that. So somewhere, why is too much. But when you want to really dive into a theory, into a law of universe, into the physics and mathematics, that's all of whys are you can then because if we know why a law and how the law of gravity operates and why we can build a plane, right? So that's
Right.
how all of that goes perfectly. And then
Yeah.
when the outcome of this was, then I actually searched for my mentors, and then I was able to find I said like, oh my god, like where should we look for the solution? And I tried and things like that, and then I met my wonderful inspiration, Jan Fennell, that was actually doing all of this in her research by analyzing. She said like when she was talking about equine behavior, a
Aquarian.
dog, horse,
Yeah.
equine rest behavior.
Uh-huh.
He said like there was a Monty. I can't recall his surname, but her friend Monty was, in order to create this program about human horse interaction, he was going in wild and for hours and days and decades observed the Mustangs, learning
Wow.
how do they interact together in a herd, right? And then
Mhm.
how the leaders and how the other members of the herd interact and things like that. And he was able to mimic that in a relationship between humans and horses. And on the other side, there was, then she said, I was put myself on a track, starting to sleep almost months and years, observing together with the Yellowstone Rangers the Yellowstone wolf pack that was reinstated after the Yellowstone almost collapsed when the wolves were exterminated from that. And all of this knowledge that we had are actually in that foundation of the basic learning of her knowledge of behavior of the wolves that she translated in her in her teachings. And later on, we took that as a foundation for the Dog Imam Academy, expanding it and bring it to this emotionally acceptable level of interacting, on this level of what we are teaching in our academy. because
Yeah.
that's a foundation that we build on. But I have her as my very, how can I say, strong support, and she takes care about that. Nothing we add or nothing we kind of tweak here to fit the narrative, to fit the soft
Right.
language. It's actually do not go away from the essence of the canine
Right.
communication, right?
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's just like it's a must-have. Like it's just a must-have. If you're going to
It's a
be a dog
welcome.
parent, if you're going to be a dog parent, you really need to know this if you want to give your dog the best. And we do. We do. We want to give our dog the best. So, I know you're not launching it for a while, but um like anybody who's interested, yeah, to get in touch and get connected to it so things can get started because I just yeah, I mean, it breaks my heart to think that we are unwillingly hurting our dogs or overstressing our dogs just because we don't have the right information of how to communicate with them and how to know how they're communicating with us. So I love that. I feel like we could talk about this forever, and maybe in the next episode too, we can talk about some of the other behaviors that people most commonly see, and what things they can extract from those things or where to look to figure that out when they're having those issues.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. That's this is like forever going story. It's always everything comes back to establishing the leadership position and to have a tools to do that without being a bully. Because by
Yeah,
being a
without
bully,
being a
you can be
bully.
you can be a leader by being a bully, but you are killing your dog from within, and it's just a
Right.
question of time when it's gonna collapse. And
Right.
being a bully also mean creating for example, dogs can be like anxious and hyperactive and look
Right.
happy.
And look happy. Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah. The internal world's very different.
Yeah, and that is
Yeah.
why we're introducing the co-testing. So you don't need to trust me. You're
Yeah.
gonna see it work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really great. I love it. I
Okay.
love it. I
Can we
love it.
close it slowly for today? I think like I kind
Yeah.
of can talk to you because you are so inspiring with your questions and with everything. And thank you so much for being by my
Yeah.
side here. And also,
I'm so
Vedran,
glad.
a big cheer to you for
Yeah. Always thank you, Vedran.
running this so smoothly behind that production, or actually that production that's happening. And
Yeah.
we
He's our
just
producer.
he's our producer. There you go. So then.
But also, Sasha, I wanted to just also thank you for, I mean, you have so many years of experience and knowledge, and you're beautifully intuitive as well. I mean, I think which gives you many gifts of doing what you do. But I mean, I can't imagine. I just like have this picture of like all these dogs on the planet. So grateful that someone has tapped in to say, like, hey, everybody. So, like, on behalf of all dogs, guess what? Learn how to communicate with them but truly grateful because again they're like if they are like our family, which they are, like our children, even though we don't want to humanize them, we do want to treat them the best. So thank you for bringing all of this knowledge and ways for us to learn these things so we can be better leaders with our dogs.
Thank you so much for appreciate really you seeing it, because oftentimes, no matter how hard I try, the people fail to see that, and then I take that as my failure because I was not able to communicate it properly. And that's why we have a great team of the copywriters and the people are helping us put this in a very easy, digestible message
Yeah.
that won't let anyone feel judged because they didn't know or they are doing it
Right.
wrongly or things like that. Because oftentimes I think that's something that the people, literally shut off. And I find myself like very, once you know the secret or the knowledge and everything, you try to maybe push people too hard, oftentimes beyond,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you are, because I care about the dog and I'm so kind of focused on the dog that oftentimes are forgotten in a way of to approaching the dog as a human, and we all have our ways of responding and
Yeah.
reacting to the triggers. And I
Yeah,
can
you're a huge
apologize like
advocate.
to every single one, including everyone that approached me, and I was maybe uh, you know trying to do my best, but also I tried like, oh my God, maybe maybe I was able to do something more so those dogs wouldn't experience what they did, because down the road this little one got almost killed by the car or the truck, and the other ones were put down. But also there is a lot of beautiful stories, but I can say also how hard it is to communicate this message properly. So thank you. That's what I'm wanting to say here, that you are with your questions and keeping my English being back to when you say, oh my God, can you just give a more context to this? Or are you saying this? Or are you saying that? So I really feel really safe next to you, that we will together as a team be able to, spread this message as wide as it should go.
That's what it's about, right? I mean, work together. It's a win. And also, like, well, working together. So whether they can hear it through me or you or both of us or a mishmash of it all, the main thing is we want everybody to understand how, like, the ultimate thing is understand there's tools and ways for you to learn how to communicate with your dog effectively. And the thing I just wanted to end on the note, it's a super win-win thing. I mean, I know if you feel like if you maybe have felt like you're like pressuring or being too like, because you really want the people to understand this about their dog, but it really is a win-win. If you take the time to listen about it, you grow as a person being able to help your dog. Like, you rise in your consciousness to help your dog. It helps them. It helps you. It helps your family. It helps the community. Like, it's this whole ripple effect when we are more aware of how we're treating ourselves and each other and our animals, the planet, everything. I mean, it all matters.
The one that really depend on us, right? Because the children at one stage, they're going to grow, they're going to go out there, they're going to find a therapist that they may be going to, be able to break out from the chains that we put
Dogs
on
don't
the
have
burden.
therapists.
Dogs can't do that, unfortunately.
They can't go to therapy to heal what their parents didn't do.
And all of these, like, I don't see the dog, like in the Doggy Mom Academy, like, we don't see the dogs. Everything is actually awareness of the owner and teaching them to learn canine communication, canine language.
And like you said, it's a safe space. It's not a blame. I mean, heck, I shared my whole story last time, and I know there's things I could have done better, but I also know that I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. But it's liberating to me to know I can do better, and that now there's a way for me to know how to do better. So that's, rather than just being like, what do we do? I still don't know how to do it.
There you go. If you don't know how to start, pick up the bowl. That's what you can start. Start slow. You don't need to enroll academy. Take out from this live, pick up the bowl. That's it. And then the other one, when the dogs call you, don't answer immediately. Ignore them and start the play on your own. Treat them with the treats. Don't give them the treat without, and don't ask from them to sit or to do. Be creative in what you ask them to do. Come to you, move around, come again, do this. And if you give them, let them not give them the treat, give them rewards. And if you give them something to chew, also ask them to do something, give them, and leave them to play with that until whenever they want, right?
Yes. And then also, I think another really big one is interpreting like ways our dogs are protecting us, and understanding that's a sign that they're not seeing us as a leader. And that's when we really need to step into this, tightening up the rituals and doing that process.
Yeah, because everything starts with the rituals. Aggression, the pulling on the leash, the
pulling on the leash,
the peeing all over the place, the chewing, every single behavior problem is finished once we take a leadership position. Yeah. Nothing is done.
That's really good news. That's really good news.
Yeah, but in order for you to understand that, you need to step back and learn it from the wolves. Because in this academy, it's not me who is teaching you anything. It's you observing the wolves with our guidance, and then together with us translating that to a dog language, because that's a canine language. That spoke canine lupus, that's a wolf, and a canine familiaris, that's a family dog. Yeah. Both are canines, and they speak the same language.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. I love it.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you, Shannon, once again. It's a very inspiring Thursday. This time next week, Wednesday again, right? Are we back on the Wednesdays?
Wednesday and Wednesday from there on out.
Okay, perfect.
All
I
right.
wish you a wonderful
Thank you so
spring
much.
in Fairfield in
Thank
week,
you.
and then see you next week. And for all of you
Happy
who are
sunshine in Miami.
listening, sorry.
I said happy sunshine in Miami.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah,
Color.
there you go. We're gonna enjoy.
Your tan is
Yeah,
killing me. Look at this white skin, and you got this beautiful bronze tan.
it's always place to visit.
Yes, yes, yes. I will. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for everyone to joining us.
Thanks a
And
lot, everyone, and then see you
see you
next.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.